Hello, my dear friends. You are standing in the heart of a city nestled so high in the mountains that the air itself feels thin and sharp, like fine crystal. The sun is not just bright, it is an overwhelming, divine presence, its rays hitting the sheer stone walls of the surrounding peaks and reflecting with an intensity that makes you squint. Every surface in the great plaza of Cuzco seems to shimmer, plated in a layer of brilliant, buttery gold. It's a spectacle of such impossible wealth that it feels like a dream. A city built not by mortals, but by the sun itself. And you, in the heart of it all, feel an intoxicating mix of awe and a dizzying shortness of breath. You probably wouldn't survive here for long, but for now, the vision is breathtaking. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's these small acts that keep our little explorations into the forgotten corners of history going. Now imagine yourself in that crowd. The air is thick with the smell of roasting maize and the sweet, fermented scent of chicha. The corn beer being passed around in heavy ceramic cups. The sound is a symphony of rhythmic drumming, the high, haunting notes of reed flutes and a low, continuous chant from thousands of voices honoring the great god, Inti Sun. This is the Inti Raymi, the most lavish festival in the entire Inca Empire. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are witnessing a universe built on a single, unwavering principle: reciprocity. A cosmic balance sheet where every gift demands a payment, every blessing requires a sacrifice. The Incas called it Ani, and it governed everything from a neighbor helping you plow your field to the very relationship between humanity and the gods. And here, at the height of the empire's power, the sun has given them everything: warmth, light, bountiful harvests, and victory in battle. The payment, therefore, must be spectacular. Your eyes are drawn to the Saper Inca himself, the emperor, a living god on earth. He is carried on a golden litter, and he is so draped in hammered gold discs, intricate jewelry, and a headdress of impossible feathers that he seems more like a celestial body than a man. The light he reflects is literally blinding. His nobles surround him, their earlobes stretched by heavy golden spools, their tunics woven from vicua wool so fine it feels like silk. They drink from golden goblets, and even the statues of their ancestors, brought out to witness the festival, are adorned with the precious metal. This isn't just wealth, it's a statement. It is the earthly manifestation of divine favor, a grand, glittering thank you note to the cosmos. You watch as 100 pure white llamas, their coats like freshly fallen snow, are led into the plaza. Their throats will be cut with a golden knife, their blood spattering the sacred stones, their entrails read by priests to divine the future. It's a shocking moment of violence amidst the beauty, but it feels expected. It is a part of the performance. But this grand, public spectacle of reciprocity, as startling as it is, masks a much quieter, much colder, and far more profound payment. If you slip away from the deafening chants and the shimmer of the main plaza, you might notice a smaller, more solemn procession making its way out of the city. There are no drums here. No joyous shouts. There is only the soft padding of sandals on stone and the thin, whistling wind. This is the procession of the Kepakake. And at its heart are children. They are, by Inca standards, perfect. They have no blemishes, no scars, no crooked teeth. They are the most beautiful and physically flawless children from across the four corners of the vast empire, chosen from noble families and sent to Cuzco as the ultimate tribute. Looking at them, you don't see terror. You don't see sadness. They have been treated as minor deities for weeks, perhaps months. They are dressed in the most exquisite textiles, miniature versions of the nobles' finest garments. They wear tiny sandals of woven wool and are given little offerings to holdols dressed just like them, or tiny, perfect llamas forged from gold and silver. They are being systematically intoxicated, their cheeks full of coca leaves to numb the cold and the exhaustion, and they are given draughts of chicha to keep their spirits calm and their minds clouded. They are being honored, and they are walking to their deaths. This is the shocking reality beneath the sun-drenched festival. While the empire celebrates life, these children are the ultimate price. They are led on a journey that can last for months, walking hundreds of miles along the vast network of Inca roads. They traverse humid jungles and arid deserts, finally ascending the highest, most sacred mountain peaks, the Apus, the powerful deities who control the weather and the fate of the people below. Imagine the final ascent. The air is so thin it feels like a blade in your lungs. The world is reduced to rock, ice, and a sky of the deepest, darkest blue. The children, now heavily sedated, are gently lowered into a small, stone-lined chamber that has been meticulously prepared. Their little offerings are arranged around them. They are given a final, potent drink of chicha, and as they fall into a deep, unconscious sleep, the chamber is sealed. There is no bloody spectacle here. No knife, no struggle. They simply freeze. It is a quiet, peaceful, and utterly chilling end. They are sacrifices, yes, but they are also seen as eternal guardians, divine ambassadors sent to live with the mountain gods and intercede on behalf of their people. This was the ultimate expression of Ani. When an earthquake shook the land, or a volcano erupted, or a devastating drought threatened the crops, the cosmic balance sheet was in the red. A debt was owed. And only the most precious gift of pure, perfect human life, given willingly and peacefully, could settle the account. The family of a sacrificed child was not shamed. They were elevated, honored for their immense contribution to the survival of the empire. To them, their son or daughter had not died, but had become a god. It was a transaction of terrifying logic, a sacred duty that underpinned the entire dazzling illusion of the Golden Empire. That woven cloth they were buried in, so soft and intricately patterned, was more than just a beautiful shroud. It was a language, a map, a prayer, and sometimes a bridge to another world, built with a different kind of sacrifice entirely. That woven cloth, the one that wrapped the perfect, sacrificed child, was indeed a language, a map, and a prayer. But weaving in the Andes was not just for clothing or shrouds. It was for building roads to the gods, and sometimes for building literal roads through the air. You now find yourself standing on the edge of a colossal canyon, the Apermac River a churning, silver ribbon hundreds of feet below. The gorge is so wide that the people on the other side are just colourful specks, and for 1 week a year, this chasm becomes the site of one of the most remarkable festivals of communal effort you can imagine. This is the renewal of the Queswakaka, the last surviving hand-woven Inca grass bridge. From the surrounding communities, people have gathered. The air, which moments ago felt thin and tense with the high-altitude chill, is now filled with the sound of laughter and festive music from pipes and drums. The women sit in long lines, their nimble fingers expertly braiding thousands of feet of tough, yellow-green ichu grass into thin, strong cords. Their brightly coloured skirts and shawls make them look like a garden of wildflowers blooming on the cliff top. The men take these smaller cords and, with a powerful, rhythmic twisting motion, weave them into massive, arm-thick ropes, the building blocks of the new bridge. There is feasting, drinking of celebratory chicha, and a palpable sense of shared purpose. It feels like a beautiful, rustic barn raising, a testament to what a community can achieve when it works as one. You see the finished product taking shape, a sturdy, sagging, yet undeniably powerful structure, a golden artery of grass connecting two sides of a world. It is a triumph of human ingenuity and cooperation. But look closer. Step away from the communal celebration and focus on the figure of one man, the Chekawak, the master bridge builder. As the old bridge is cut away, its fibres groaning as they fall into the river below in a symbolic death, a heavy silence falls over the crowd. The music stops, the laughter dies. All eyes are on him. Because now he must perform a task so terrifying it borders on the suicidal. He must string the first guide rope across that gaping void. There are no safety harnesses, no nets. There is only the Chekawak, a coil of light rope, and his unshakable knowledge passed down through generations. He inches his way along the sheer cliff, face to a precarious stone abutment. The wind whips his poncho and tugs at him, trying to pull him into the abyss. He and another man on the far side will throw the rope, a thin lifeline, across the chasm. One miscalculation, one gust of wind, one moment of doubt, and he will follow the old bridge into the churning water below. The festive atmosphere you just witnessed was the beautiful illusion. This is the shocking reality. The entire project, the entire community's link to the outside world for the next year, rests on this single, heart-stopping moment of profound danger. And the pressure is not merely physical. It is intensely spiritual. In the days leading up to the festival, the Chekawak has been in a state of ritual purity. He has fasted. He has abstained from all contact with his wife. He has prayed constantly to the Apis, the mountain spirits who own this canyon, and to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, because the bridge is not seen as an inanimate object. It is a living entity, with a spirit of its own, and that spirit is powerful and very, very temperamental. This is why, during the most sacred and dangerous parts of the construction, no women are allowed near the site. It is not born of simple sexism. It's a deeply held spiritual belief. The presence of female energy, it is thought, could make the bridge's spirit jealous or weak. An argument between workers, a moment of disrespect, even an impure thought could offend the Apis, cursing the bridge to fail and bringing disaster upon the communities. Think of it, the joy you saw was underpinned by a deep, collective anxiety. Every twist of grass, every prayer murmured, is a desperate plea for safety and stability. The festival is not just a celebration of community, it's a high-stakes negotiation with the terrifying forces of nature. The bridge's annual death and rebirth is a necessary sacrifice, a renewal of the pact between the people and the powerful, unseen world they inhabit. The bridge itself is a form of reciprocity, of Ani. The people give their skill, their labour, their courage, and their reverence to the sacred Kenyum. In return, the Kenyum grants them safe passage. The bridge connects communities, allowing for trade, marriage, and mutual support. But other Andean cultures practiced rituals that were not about connection, but about domination. They celebrated not communal strength, but the brutal power of the warrior elite, and their celebrations often ended with a ceremonial toast, a crimson tribute poured not from a jug of chicha, but from a source far more terrifying. You now travel back in time, and north, along the arid, sun-scorched coast of what is now Peru. The landscape is a monochrome masterpiece of brown and ochre, a desert so dry that in some places it hasn't rained for centuries. Yet, rising from this dusty earth are two colossal structures, the Hueca del Sol and the Hueca de la Luna, the pyramids of the sun and the moon. They are not stone, like the Inca temples, but are built from millions of mud bricks, their surfaces once painted with vibrant murals of gods and monsters. This is the domain of the Moch, a civilization of fierce warriors, brilliant artisans and deeply unsettling ritualists. You find yourself in a courtyard at the base of the Hueca de la Luna. The walls around you are alive with colour, depicting a fanged, almost spider-like deity, Aepac, the decapitator. The air is tense with anticipation. A procession of elite Mochi warriors enters the sacred space, and the illusion they present is one of almost supernatural power. They are tall and imposing, their faces painted in bold geometric patterns. They wear breathtaking regalia, hammered gold headdresses shaped like crescent moons or snarling jaguar heads, pectorals made of shimmering turquoise and shell, and heavy ear spools that glint in the harsh desert sun. Their tunics are richly woven, and they carry formidable weapon-heavy war clubs studded with copper points and sharp, obsidian-edged knives. They are the earthly embodiment of divine might, the protectors of their people, the conquerors of their enemies. They move with a disciplined grace, a swagger that speaks of absolute confidence and victory. A priest, similarly adorned, holds up a gleaming goblet, ready to begin the celebratory toast. It seems like a familiar scene of post-battle revelry. But then, the captives are brought in, and the grand illusion shatters. These are not common soldiers. They are, or were, elite warriors from a rival group, identifiable by their own fine, now torn, clothing. They have been stripped naked, their bodies bruised and bloodied. Ropes are tied tightly around their necks, held by their Moch captors. Their defeat was not just a military loss, it has been a complete and total ritual humiliation. This is the Moch way of war. It isn't about gaining territory, it's about acquiring a very specific resource, high-status victims for sacrifice. The most shocking part of the reality is what happens next. The captives are not simply executed. Their throats are cut, and as their lifeblood gushes forth, it is carefully collected in ornate ceramic goblets, some shaped like the heads of owls or fanged gods. This is the crimson liquid that will be used for the toast. The priest presents a full goblet to the warrior lord. Other elites receive theirs. And as the sun beats down on the painted walls, they raise the cups to their lips and drink. They are not drinking wine, or chicha, or water. They are drinking the warm, fresh blood of their defeated enemies. What logic could possibly lead to this macabre ceremony? It wasn't simple cruelty or a thirst for blood. For the Moch, the world was animated by a life force, a vital essence that was concentrated in the blood. They lived in a desert. Rain was scarce, and life was a constant struggle against the encroaching dryness. Their agricultural society depended on complex irrigation canals that brought water from the distant mountains, a daily miracle that could fail at any moment. They believed that the world, like their fields, could dry up. It needed to be constantly nourished, re-energized, and rejuvenated. And the most potent source of this life-giving essence was the blood of a strong, virile, high-status warrior. The ritual was a form of cosmic transference. By consuming the blood of their captives, the Moch elite believed they were not only absorbing their enemies' strength and power, but were also feeding the gods and the earth itself. They were taking the life force from their enemies and recycling it back into their own world to ensure its survival. The murals on the walls weren't just decoration, they were a divine mandate, a visual instruction manual for the rituals required to keep the decapitator god, Aapake, and the other deities satisfied. The blood was a sacrament, the ultimate offering in a culture that saw life and death as part of a brutal, hydraulic cycle. The glorious warrior in his golden headdress wasn't just a soldier, he was a priest, a farmer of human blood, ensuring the continued nourishment of his people. The stunning art and metalwork of the Moch, their beautiful ceramics depicting every aspect of their lives, were all funded and fueled by this terrifying, cyclical need for ritual violence. Their canals were feats of engineering, bringing life to the desert, but their maintenance required a different kind of ceremony, a journey not into the heart of a man, but into the suffocating darkness of the earth itself. You leave the bloody courtyards of the Moch and travel south, following the coastline until the desert becomes even more stark, more alien. You are in the realm of the Nauka, a people famous for etching colossal geoglyphs into the desert for spiders, hummingbirds, and strange, geometric shapes so vast they can only be truly appreciated from the sky. These lines have mystified people for generations, but the true Nauka miracle isn't what they carved on the Earth's surface, it's what they built beneath it. You are standing in a dusty, sun-baked valley. All around you is the parched, brown earth. Yet, patches of vibrant green defy the landscape, fields of cotton, beans and maize flourishing in the middle of one of the driest places on the planet. The air hums with a quiet, subterranean music, the gentle, gurgling sound of moving water. This sound is the lifeblood of the Nauka. Today, the community has gathered to celebrate it. The festival is a joyous affair. People are dressed in brightly colored woven ponchos, their heads wrapped in patterned textiles. They play music on ceramic panpipes, their interlocking notes creating a beautiful, watery melody that seems to rise from the ground itself. They share food and drink, their faces filled with gratitude and relief. They are celebrating the Puquayos, their ancient and ingenious underground aqueducts. The Puquayos are an engineering marvel. A network of subterranean canals, sometimes dozens of feet deep, that tap into the high water table of the nearby mountains and channel it for miles under the desert to irrigate their fields. The only signs of this hidden world on the surface are the ojos, or ice, a series of spiraling, stone-lined funnels that descend into the darkness. These ojos allow air to enter the tunnels, keeping the water flowing and provide access for maintenance. The public image of the festival is one of pure, life-affirming joy. It is a cantata for water, a celebration of the genius that allows life to bloom in the face of desolation. The spiraling ojos look like beautiful, sacred sculptures, portals to the underworld where the water gods dwell. But now, it is time for the maintenance ritual to begin. The music softens. A group of men, stripped down to simple loincloths, gather at the edge of one of the largest ojos. They carry simple tools, gourds for scooping mud, and woven bags, and one by one, they begin to descend. This is the shocking reality hidden beneath the celebration. The maintenance of the Puquayos was not a simple task of clearing a ditch. It was a terrifying, claustrophobic journey into the pitch-black, suffocating bowels of the earth. You watch as a man disappears down the spiraling stone path, his footsteps echoing, until he reaches the narrow tunnel at the bottom. The canal is often no more than 3 or 4 feet high. He must crawl on his hands and knees, in the cold, flowing water, through a passage that could stretch for hundreds of feet in absolute darkness. He is clearing out the silt and debris that could block the flow, a human dredge in a man-made cave. Imagine the sensory experience. The oppressive weight of tons of earth and rock just inches above your head. The constant, chilling touch of the water soaking into your skin. The disorienting blackness, broken only by the faintest glimmer of light from the next distant ojo. The air is damp, stale, and thin. A sudden collapse, a flash flood from a freak storm in the mountains miles away, or even just getting stuck would mean a slow, terrifying death. There is no escape. You cannot simply stand up and walk out. Every year, men had to face this primal fear, crawling through this man-made underworld to ensure the water continued to flow. The beautiful, life-giving music of the Puquayos was purchased with this annual act of terrifying bravery. The logic behind this ordeal was simple and inescapable: survival. Without the Puquayos, the Naka civilization could not have existed. The fields would have withered, and the people would have starved. The maintenance was a sacred duty, a non-negotiable pact with the earth and the water. The men who undertook this task were not seen as mere labourers, they were heroes, confronting the underworld to preserve the world of the living. Their journey into the darkness was a ritual battle against the forces of chaos and decay that threatened to choke off the community's water supply. The beautiful, spiralling ojos were not just artistic flourishes, they were a vital design element, providing the access points for this harrowing work and the only promise of a return to the light. The joyous festival on the surface was both a celebration of the water and a prayer for the safe return of the men who had descended into the dark to tame it. This reverence for what lies beneath the earth extended not just to water, but to those who had come before. For other cultures, a festival was not complete without inviting the most honoured guests of all the long deceased, brought out from their tombs to join the party. You travel now into the highlands, into the sphere of a powerful and enigmatic empire that predated the Inca by centuries, the Wari. You are in a spacious, stone-walled enclosure, a central plaza surrounded by multi-storied buildings. The air is crisp and cool, carrying the scent of wood smoke and roasting meat. The great feast is underway. Piles of steaming potatoes, quinoa and jerky are laid out on colourful woven cloths. Large ceramic vessels, painted with stylized felines and birds of prey, are filled to the brim with chicha. It is a scene of communal bounty and political power. Dignitaries from distant corners of the Wari realm are here, their diverse clothing and dialects a testament to the empire's reach. They are here to reaffirm their loyalty, to trade and to partake in the state's largesse. The atmosphere is one of profound respect and solemnity, centered around the guests of honor. Seated in the most prominent positions are the ancestors. This is the glamorous illusion of a Wari feast, a powerful, orderly, and deeply pious society that literally shares its good fortune with the founding fathers and mothers of its lineage. These are not statues or representations. They are the actual mummified bodies of great kings, queens, and nobles from generations past. They are dressed in fine new clothes, their heads adorned with feather headdresses, their ancient faces sometimes covered with masks of beaten gold. Priests and family members sit beside them, offering them food and drink, lifting a cup of chicha to their parched, silent lips and pouring a little onto the ground as a libation. It's a powerful statement of continuity, a belief that the dead are not gone, but are merely in a different state of being, still present, still powerful, and still requiring nourishment and respect from the living. But as you get closer, the pristine illusion begins to fray, replaced by a shocking, visceral reality. These are not the sterile, linen-wrapped mummies of Egypt. Andean mummification was often a natural process, aided by the dry, cold climate. The bodies are desiccated, shrunken, and brittle. Their skin is like ancient parchment, stretched taut over their bones, often split and peeling. The smell is not of perfumed incense, but of dust, decay, and the faint, musty scent of a tomb that has been sealed for centuries. You see attendants carefully adjusting a fine woven poncho over a revered ancestor, and a small cloud of dust and perhaps a flake of ancient skin falls away. You notice that some of the mummies are propped up with sticks, their skeletal limbs no longer able to support their own weight. One great lord's jaw has slackened over the decades, giving him a permanent, ghastly grin. They are not just guests, they are puppets. Living descendants will stand behind them, moving their arms, speaking for them, answering ritual questions posed by the Wari emperor. Does my ancestor approve of this new alliance? The emperor might ask. The descendant, speaking in a high, reedy voice meant to be that of the mummy, would reply. These dusty, decaying bodies were not just venerated relics, they were active participants in the political theatre of the empire. They were used to legitimize land claims, settle disputes, and sanction policies. An ancestor could give their blessing to a marriage or approve of a military campaign. Who could argue with the founding father of the state? The why behind this unsettling practice is a fascinating blend of spirituality and shrewd politics. The Wari, like many Andean peoples, did not see death as an end. The body was a vessel, and the spirit remained a potent force. To neglect one's ancestors was to risk their wrath crop failure, disease and defeat. Feeding and clothing the mummies was a crucial act of aini, of reciprocity, ensuring their continued goodwill. But on an imperial level, it was a genius move of political consolidation. The Wari Empire was a mosaic of different peoples and cultures. By controlling the physical remains of the most important founding ancestors from across the realm, the Wari state controlled their authority. A regional lord couldn't very well rebel against an order that was spoken by his own great-grandfather, whose mummy was sitting right there in the worry capital. The ancestors became, in essence, hostages. Their presence at these state feasts was a constant, visual reminder of who was in charge. The bizarre, ventriloquist-like conversations with the dead were a form of binding legal contract, witnessed by all. The grand, solemn feast with the honored dead was, in reality, a carefully managed and slightly macabre puppet show designed to keep a sprawling, diverse empire from tearing itself apart. The reverence was real, but it was weaponized, turned into a tool of statecraft. This blend of reverence and desperation, of beauty and horror, was a common theme. Sometimes, the desperation was so great that another culture would turn not to the dead, but to the living, and offer up the most precious thing of all in a desperate plea to a different celestial body, the moon. Your journey takes you back to the northern coast of Peru, to the arid plains where a new power has risen from the ashes of the Moch. This is the kingdom of Chima, and its capital, Chan, is the largest adobe city ever built on Earth. You stand before a massive, high-walled compound, one of 9 such citadels that make up the heart of the city. The walls are decorated with mesmerizing, repeating patterns of fish, seabirds, and waves, a testament to a culture that drew its life from the Pacific Ocean. The moon, not the sun, was their chief deity. You have arrived on the night of a sacred ceremony. The desert air is cool, and a brilliant full moon hangs in the sky, casting a silvery, ethereal light over the entire landscape. The adobe phrases on the walls seem to shimmer and move in the pale light. The festival is a picture of serene, silent devotion. Priests in simple white robes move through the courtyards, their faces calm and focused. The offerings they carry are not of gold, which belong to the sun, but of silver, the moon's sacred metal. They lay down delicate, hammered silver ornaments, necklaces of polished shells, and fine textiles woven with lunar motifs. The sound is not of joyous music, but of the gentle sigh of the nearby ocean and the soft, sibilant whispers of prayers to Sai, the moon goddess. This is the glamorous illusion. A cool, intellectual, and peaceful religion, a sophisticated society paying homage to the quiet power of the moon and the tides it commands. It feels calm, orderly, and deeply spiritual, but a foul smell undercuts the serene beauty. It's the smell of stagnant, muddy water and decay, a scent that does not belong in this bone-dry desert. And as your eyes adjust to the moonlight, you notice the ground outside the sacred compound is dark and wet. A thin layer of mud covers everything, and the base of the great adobe walls is stained and eroded. This is the aftermath of a catastrophe. An El Niño event, a periodic disruption of oceanic and atmospheric patterns, has brought torrential, unheard-of rains to this desert coast. The adobe city, built of sun-dried mud bricks, is literally melting. The irrigation canals are destroyed, the fields are flooded, and the fisheries, the very foundation of Chimu life, have been devastated by the influx of warm, fresh water. The serene ceremony you are witnessing is not one of peaceful worship. It is an act of sheer, panicked desperation. And the silver offerings are not the only sacrifice being made. Near a small, specially built shrine, you see the evidence. It's a shallow grave, hastily dug into the muddy earth. Inside, laid out in neat rows, are the small bodies of children and juvenile llamas. This is the shocking reality of the moonlit ritual. It is the site of the largest known mass child sacrifice in the history of the Americas. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of over 140 children, between the ages of 5 and 14, and over 200 young llamas. They were not from Chan, but were brought in from the provinces of the Chimu Empire. Their chests were cut open, likely to remove their hearts, in a single, efficient, and horrifying ritual act. They were all facing the sea, a desperate offering to appease the forces that had brought this unnatural, world-ending rain. The beautiful, silvery moonlight doesn't look so serene anymore. It illuminates a scene of unimaginable horror. What could possibly justify such an act? It was a twisted, terrifying form of the same cosmic logic of Aina you saw with the Inca. The world was fundamentally out of balance. The rain was a sign that the gods, particularly the powerful sea, were enraged. A normal offering of silver or seashells was clearly insufficient to quell such monumental anger. The Chim leaders, facing the complete collapse of their society, believed they had no other choice. They had to make the most valuable offering imaginable. And what is more valuable than the next generation? The logic was precise and heartbreaking. The children were not chosen at random. Their healthy bones suggest they were well-nourished, not slaves or captives. The llamas were all young and brown, or light brown. It was a specific, carefully curated sacrifice. By offering their own healthy children and the young animals that represented the future of their herds, they were giving up their own future to save the present. It was a desperate, cosmic bargain, a final, catastrophic payment to stop the rain and persuade the ocean to return to its normal state. The serene, beautiful ceremony of the silver moon was a mask for a society pushed to the absolute brink, making a choice that is, to us, monstrous, but to them, was the only logical way to save their world from drowning. This search for answers from the gods, this desperate need to commune with the powerful forces of the cosmos, often led people down an even more personal and psychologically perilous path, seeking not to appease the gods, but to meet them face to face. Your journey now takes you inward, not to a grand public plaza or a coastal shrine, but to a small, dark hut, far from the communal feast. The air inside is thick with the sharp, green scent of crushed plants and the smoke of burning Palo Santo wood. You are with a shaman, a spiritual specialist who navigates the unseen world. He is preparing for a journey, a communion with the spirits of the mountains, the sky, and the underworld. The ritual seems, at first, to be one of quiet contemplation and immense personal power. The shaman is an impressive figure. His face is lined with the wisdom of his years, his eyes deep-set and knowing. He is surrounded by his sacred implements, his mesa, a collection of objects radiating power and meaning, polished stones from a sacred river, a conda feather, a jaguar tooth, a small bottle of perfume. Everything is arranged with meticulous care. He chants in a low, hypnotic monotone, his voice a rhythmic hum that seems to make the very air in the hut vibrate. He is preparing to ingest the most sacred of all plant teachers, the San Pedro cactus, a towering, ribbed plant that grows high in the Andean slopes. The cactus has been boiled for hours, reduced to a viscous, potent liquid. This is the glamorous illusion. The all-powerful shaman, master of the spirit world, calmly and deliberately opening a portal to the divine for the good of his community. He is a healer, a diviner, a direct line to the gods. But then, he drinks. And the reality of this sacred journey is revealed to be anything but calm and controlled. The first effect of the potent mescaline brew is not a vision of heavenly spirits, but a violent, gut-wrenching purge. The shaman begins to vomit, long and hard, into a bowl placed before him. This is not seen as a side effect. It is a crucial, mandatory part of the ritual. It is a physical and spiritual cleansing, a voiding of all the impurities, negative energies, and spiritual sickness that he or the community he is healing has accumulated. He must be an empty, clean vessel before the gods will speak through him. It is a noisy, undignified, and physically draining ordeal that completely shatters the image of the serene spiritual master. And this is just the beginning. As the psychoactive compounds take hold, his journey is not one of floating through blissful, heavenly realms. It is often a terrifying, psychological ordeal. He confronts his deepest fears, which manifest as monstrous, snarling jaguars or gigantic, coiling serpents trying to devour him. He may feel his body dissolving, his skin peeling away, or his bones turning to water. He is not just visiting the spirit world, he is doing battle with its most dangerous denizens. The low, hypnotic chant you heard earlier was not just a prayer, it was an anchor, a thread of sound to guide him through the chaos, and, hopefully, back to his own body. He might thrash on the ground, cry out in fear, or speak in tongues as different spirits pass through him. The logic behind this terrifying ritual lies in the Andean understanding of sickness and misfortune. They were not seen as random events, but as the result of soul loss, witchcraft, or a spiritual imbalance. The shaman was a doctor whose patient was the soul. To heal a sick person, he first had to diagnose the spiritual cause of the illness. To do this, he had to travel to the patient's spiritual landscape and see what was wrong. Was a curse sent by an enemy lodged in their aura? Had a part of their soul been stolen by a malevolent spirit? The violent purge was the first step in cleaning his own spiritual body so he could see clearly. The psychological terrors were the diagnostic journey itself. He had to confront the very demons that were tormenting his patient in order to understand and defeat them. The visions were not for pleasure, they were for information. He might see the face of the person who had placed a curse. He might find the lost piece of a soul and have to wrestle it back from a dark entity. He was, in essence, a psychonaut, a spiritual warrior who voluntarily endured psychological torment and physical misery to bring back knowledge, healing, and balance for his community. The powerful, all-knowing shaman was, in reality, a man who repeatedly subjected himself to a state of temporary, induced madness. His revered status was earned through these repeated descents into a personal hell, a necessary sacrifice to maintain the spiritual health of his people. The shaman's mesa often included other potent items from far away, things that required their own dangerous journeys to acquire. One of the most prized of all was not a plant, but a shell, a crimson jewel from the sea that was considered the very food of the gods. Leaving the shaman's smoky hut, you find yourself back on the coast, the brilliant sun warming your face. The air is alive with the sounds of a bustling market. Weavers trade fine textiles, potters display their wares, and farmers offer pyramids of colourful potatoes and maize. But the most valuable commodity here, the one drawing the most attention from wealthy-looking individuals in fine alpaca wool, is not gold or silver. It is a pile of spiny, blood-red and vibrant orange shells. This is the spondylus or thorny oyster, a bivalve that lives in the warm, deep waters far to the north, off the coast of modern-day Ecuador. To the people of the Andes, this shell was more than just a beautiful object. It was sacred. It was called the food of the gods and was considered more precious than any metal. The shell's arrival was mystically linked to the coming of the rains, making it a powerful symbol of fertility and agricultural abundance. In the grand illusion of the marketplace, you see the finished product, polished, revered and ready to be ground into powder for rituals, offered at shrines or inlaid into the jewelry of the highest elite. You see a priest holding one up, its vibrant colour a stark and beautiful contrast to the arid landscape. The shell represents power, wealth, and a direct connection to the divine. It is a finished masterpiece, a perfect gift for the thirsty gods who bring the life-giving water. But the journey of this shell from the ocean floor to this highland market is a story of extreme peril, a shocking reality that is completely invisible here. The spondylus does not wash up on beaches. It lives cemented to rocks in deep water, as far down as 150 feet. There were no oxygen tanks, no sophisticated diving bells. There was only the skill, strength, and lung capacity of the diver. Imagine you are one of these divers, a young man from a coastal community in Ecuador that has specialized in this dangerous trade for generations. You are not diving into a calm, tropical lagoon. You are diving into the powerful currents of the open Pacific. Before you even enter the water, you chew a wad of coca leaves, not for a high, but to numb the cold and sharpen your focus. You take a heavy stone in your hands to help you sink faster, conserving precious oxygen. And then, you dive. The pressure builds immediately, squeezing your chest, making your ears ache. The water gets colder and darker as you descend. Your goal is to get to the bottom, locate a shell, and pry it from the rock with a special tool, all in a single breath. The work is frantic and exhausting. But the physical strain is not the only danger. These waters are the hunting grounds of sharks. The blood from a hand scraped on a rock, or from a carelessly handled shell, could attract unwanted attention in seconds, and even if you avoid the predators, the dive itself is a constant battle against your own body's screaming need for air. Ascending too quickly could cause the bends, a painful and often fatal condition. Pushing your breath hold just a few seconds too long could mean blacking out and drowning, just feet from the surface. This was the brutal price of the beautiful red shell. For every perfect spondylus that made it to a highland ritual, countless hours of terrifying, lung-bursting labour were expended. Men aged quickly in this trade, their bodies worn down by the constant pressure and cold. Many died, lost to the currents, to sharks, or to their own physical limits. The entire economic and spiritual system that valued the shell was built upon the shoulders of these anonymous, highly skilled, and incredibly brave divers who risk their lives on a daily basis. The why is rooted in the shell's symbolic power. It was a perfect metaphor for the Andean worldview. It came from the ocean, the ultimate source of all water. Its red colour was associated with blood, life, and sacrifice, and its spiny exterior protected a soft, edible interior, a treasure hidden within a dangerous shell. The fact that it was so difficult and dangerous to obtain only increased its value. It was a worthy offering precisely because of the human risk involved in its acquisition. When a priest in the dry highlands offered a spondylus shell to a mountain god, he wasn't just offering a pretty object. He was offering the condensed essence of the ocean, the fertility of the warm northern waters, and, implicitly, the human effort and life risk that it took to get it there. It was a potent package of Ani, a complex gift that carried the very real memory of the diver's terrifying descent into the dark. This theme of immense labour transforming a humble natural product into something sacred was not limited to exotic shells. It was applied to the most basic, most essential foodstuff of the entire Andes, the simple, unassuming potato. You are now high up on the Altiplano, the vast, windswept plateau of the Andes, well over 12,000 feet above sea level. The air is thin and so cold it feels like it could crack. It's the time of the harvest, and the communities have gathered their most precious crop. Not shimmering gold or sacred shells, but something far more fundamental: potatoes. Hundreds of varieties are piled in colourful mounds, purple, red, yellow and blue, a testament to centuries of careful cultivation in this harsh environment. The community is celebrating. There is music from reed flutes and drums, and a feeling of profound, earthy gratitude. This is the potato's humble coronation, a festival for the food that sustained empires. The illusion is one of simple, rustic abundance. You see families smiling, children playing amongst the potato sacks, and elders selecting the best tubers for the feast. They are honoring the Pachamama, the Earth Mother, for her generosity. It feels wholesome, a celebration of hearth and home, the very foundation of Andean life. They are celebrating the potato in all its glorious forms: boiled, roasted, and stewed. It is a scene of pure, life-sustaining joy, a direct and uncomplicated relationship between the people and their land. But as the sun sets and a deep, crystalline cold descends, the true work of the festival begins, and it is far from the joyous feasting you just witnessed. This is the preparation of chew, a naturally freeze-dried potato that can last for years, even decades, providing a crucial food source to survive droughts, floods, and crop failures. The process begins tonight, under the stars, in the freezing cold. The shocking reality is a process of intense, grueling labor that seems almost deliberately punishing. The harvested potatoes are spread out on the ground on straw mats. As the temperature plummets far below freezing, the water inside each potato expands, turning to ice and breaking down the cell walls. In the pre-dawn hours, before the sun can rise and thaw the crop, the entire community, men, women, and even older children, comes out to the fields. They take off their sandals, and barefoot, in the agonizing, bone-aching cold, they begin to stomp on the frozen potatoes. Imagine the feeling. The piercing cold of the frozen ground seeping into the soles of your feet, making them ache with an intensity that is hard to bear. The strange, crunchy then squishy texture of the frozen potatoes under your weight. You and your neighbors rhythmically tread upon the mounds, squeezing the icy water out of the potatoes, which flows away and quickly refreezes on the ground. Your feet are numb, then painful, then numb again. There is no joyous music now, only the rhythmic squelching sound and the shared grunts of exertion in the thin, frigid air. This is not a celebration. This is a brutal, repetitive, and painful task that must be done with speed and precision. Why this seemingly torturous method? It was a brilliantly adapted, low-tech form of food preservation, perfectly suited to the unique environment of the Altiplano. The harsh cycle of freezing nights and sunny, dry days was the key. Stomping the potatoes removed the water, and the subsequent days of exposure to the sun and dry wind would desiccate what remained, leaving behind a small, lightweight, and nearly imperishable foodstuff. Chuo was the Andes insurance policy. It was the food that fueled armies on long marches, fed populations when the fresh harvest failed, and allowed civilizations to flourish in an environment where agriculture was always precarious. The logic was one of collective survival. The pain was temporary, but the security the chew provided was long-lasting. It was another form of any with nature itself. The people endured the punishing cold, offering their labor and their discomfort to the natural freeze-thaw cycle of the Altiplano. In return, the environment transformed their perishable harvest into a source of enduring life. The barefoot stomping was not an act of drudgery, but a necessary ritual, a communal sacrifice of comfort for the promise of future security. The coronation of the potato wasn't just a party, it was a renewal of the pact between the people and their challenging, but ultimately provident, homeland. The pain in their feet was the price of survival, stomped into every single piece of life-saving chew. This intimate, often brutal relationship with the natural world extended from the earth under their feet to the creatures of the sky, where another majestic ritual combined deep reverence with a startling display of violence. You find yourself in a high mountain village, nestled in a valley surrounded by colossal, snow-dusted peaks. A festival is in full swing. The plaza is packed with people in their finest and most colorful clothes. A band plays a lively, brassy tune, a fusion of Spanish influences and ancient Andean rhythms. There is drinking, dancing, and an air of thrilling anticipation. The community has gathered to honor one of the most sacred beings in their cosmology, the great Andean condor. This magnificent bird, with a wingspan that can stretch to 10 feet, is not just an animal. It is a divine messenger, the spirit of the mountains themselves, a being that flies in the upper world of the gods, but keeps watch over the world of men. The climax of the festival is the Conda dance. The glamorous illusion is one of awesome, spiritual power. A man, the town's chosen representative, appears with a live Conda. The bird is enormous, its black feathers sleek, its ruff of white feathers like a noble's collar. It is treated with the utmost reverence, given offerings of meat and drink. The man dances with the bird, moving in a way that emulates its majestic flight. It's a powerful, symbolic union of the human and the divine, a spectacle meant to honor the sacred animal and bring its blessing good fortune, health, and strong herds to the community for the coming year. It appears to be a beautiful and respectful tribute to the Lord of the Sky. But the method by which this dance is achieved is a shocking, violent, and deeply disturbing reality. The Conda is not a willing participant. Days before, it was captured in a brutal and cunning fashion. A dead animal, like a donkey or cow, would be left in a high-altitude ravine. A small, hidden enclosure would be built around it. When a Conda landed to feast, men hiding nearby would rush out and trap it. The terrified and powerful bird would then be force-fed alcohol to subdue it and carried back to the village. And now, for the festival's main event, the real dance begins. The sacred Conda is not just held, it is physically tied to the back of a bull. A hole is sometimes pierced through the thick skin on the bull's back, and a rope is passed through it and tied to the Conda's feet, binding the two animals together in a grotesque and unnatural union. The bull, already agitated and confused, is now terrified by the massive, flapping bird strapped to its back. The Conda, equally terrified, digs its powerful talons into the bull's hide and pecks furiously at its neck and shoulders. The gate to a small rodeo ring is opened, and the tormented pair is released. Men from the village, full of bravado and cane liquor, leap into the ring to taunt the bull, playing the part of matadors in a bloody, chaotic spectacle. This is the Yawar Fiesta, the blood festival. The bull, introduced by the Spanish, represents the powerful, intrusive foreign world. The Conda represents the indigenous Andean world, the sacred mountains, and the spirits of the sky. The logic behind this seemingly cruel ritual is a form of symbolic resistance and cosmic rebalancing. By strapping the Conda to the bull's back, the community is ritualistically asserting the dominance of the Andean world over the Spanish one. They are showing that their sacred mountain spirit can ride and dominate the foreign beast. The outcome of the bloody fight is read as a prophecy for the coming year. If the Conda survives, vigorously attacking the bull, it is a good omen. The community will be strong, their harvests plentiful, their herds healthy. If the bull injures or kills the Conda, it is a terrible sign of impending misfortune. After the spectacle, if the Conda has survived, it is treated with immense reverence once more. It is cleaned, given the best food and drink, and then ceremonially released, sent back to the heavens carrying the community's prayers. The brutality is not born of a hatred for the Conda. On the contrary, it is part of its sacred role. The bird is a warrior, a divine champion fighting on behalf of the people. The terrifying and bloody rodeo is a necessary ordeal, a ritual battle that must be fought and won to ensure the survival and prosperity of the indigenous community in a world that has been violently upended. This need to record, to prophesize, and to keep accounts was central to Andean life. But their most sophisticated method of record-keeping was not written on paper, but tied in knots, a silent language that held its own life or death pressures. You are now inside a stone building in the heart of the Inca Empire, away from the noise of the festivals and the plazas. The room is quiet, cool, and dimly lit. An imperial official, a man of high rank, sits before a younger man. There are no books, no scrolls, no ink or parchment. Instead, hanging from a thick primary cord, are hundreds of knotted strings of different colors, thicknesses, and textures. This is a quipu, the Inca's unique and incredibly sophisticated device for recording information. The scene presents an illusion of elegant, abstract data management. The quipu itself is an object of strange beauty, a cascade of threads in shades of white, brown, red, and blue. The knots are tied with incredible precision, simple overhand knots, complex figure-8 knots, and long knots with multiple turns. The young man, a quipukamayok or knot keeper, runs his fingers over the strings, his lips moving silently. He is reading the knots, deciphering the story they contain. It seems like a peaceful, intellectual pursuit, a form of tactile accounting that is both complex and deeply serene. This is the Empire's central nervous system, recording census data, tax obligations, warehouse inventories, and perhaps even histories and myths. It is the very model of an organized, data-driven state. But this silent, elegant system hides a shocking reality of immense pressure and lethal consequences. The Quipu was not a simple mnemonic device that anyone could learn to read. It was a form of state-sponsored encryption. The meaning of the colors, the direction of the twists in the cord, and the placement of the knots were all part of a complex code, and the key to that code was held only by the elite guild of Quipucamayos. Information was power, and the Inca state controlled it absolutely. A Quipucamayos was not just an accountant, he was a guardian of state secrets, and the price for a mistake was death. Imagine you are that young knot keeper. An imperial administrator has asked you for the inventory of maize in a royal storehouse. You run your fingers over the strings. The color of the string represents maize. The position of the knots on the string indicates the storehouse. The type of knot indicates the unitsons, hundreds, thousands. But what if you hesitate? What if your memory falters for a split second? A single misread knot confusing a knot for 100 with one for 1,000 could have catastrophic consequences. It could lead to a community being accused of withholding tribute, a crime tantamount to treason. It could lead to an army marching without sufficient supplies. The state's trust in the Quipu system was absolute, which meant its trust in you had to be absolute. There was no room for error. An official from another region might arrive with a matching Quipu, and if your reading did not perfectly align with his, the discrepancy would not be chalked up to a simple mistake. It would be interpreted as deception. The guilty Quipucamayok would be executed swiftly and without appeal. This peaceful-looking room is, in fact, an interrogation chamber. The beautiful, silent Quipu hanging in the air is both a history book and a potential death sentence. The young man's calm demeanor is a mask for the intense, heart-pounding pressure he is under. Every time he reads a Quipu, his life is on the line. The why behind this brutal system was the maintenance of imperial control. The Inca Empire was vast and diverse, spanning thousands of miles and encompassing millions of people who spoke different languages. A standardized, written script could potentially be learned by anyone, allowing information to leak and dissent to be organized. The Quipu system, with its secretive, memorized code, ensured that only a loyal, state-trained elite could access and interpret sensitive information. It was a tool of absolute bureaucratic power. By making errors punishable by death, the state ensured the system's integrity through terror. The Quipucamayos were not just scribes, they were a specialized caste whose loyalty was guaranteed by the constant threat of execution. Their silent, tactile language was the invisible chain that bound the empire together, and every knot held the weight of life and death. This theme of grueling labor being an inescapable part of a beautiful landscape was not confined to secret state offices. It was out in the open, etched into the very mountainsides in terraces that were both a wonder to behold and a sight of immense, hereditary toil. You are standing on a ridge overlooking a narrow valley in the Andes, not far from Cuzco. The sight before you is breathtaking, almost surreal. Cascading down the side of the mountain is a shimmering, patchwork quilt of white and pale pink rectangles. This is maras, a complex of thousands of small, terraced salt pans that have been in continuous use since before the time of the Inca. A saline spring emerges from the mountain, and the water is expertly channeled through a network of tiny canals, filling each shallow pool. The sun beats down, the water evaporates, and a crust of pure, white salt is left behind. The illusion is one of ethereal, man-made beauty. It looks like a modernist art installation dropped into the middle of the mountains. The play of light on the water and the crystallized salt is mesmerizing. The gentle, gurgling sound of the water trickling from one pool to the next is peaceful and meditative. You can see a few workers, tiny figures in the distance, moving slowly among the pools. It seems like a gentle, almost artistic form of agriculture, harvesting the tears of the mountain in a place of stunning tranquility. This is a gift from the Pachamama, a natural spring that provides a valuable resource, and the people are its grateful custodians. But as you make your way down into the complex, the beautiful illusion dissolves under the harsh, Andean sun. The reality is one of grueling, relentless, and skin-cracking labor that is an inescapable family obligation. You approach one of the workers. He is not moving slowly out of meditative calm. He is moving slowly because the work is exhausting and the footing is treacherous. The paths between the pools are narrow, slippery with salt-laced mud. A single misstep could send you tumbling down the steep terraces. The man is using a simple wooden rake to gently scrape the newly formed salt crystals from the bottom of the pool. The work requires a delicate touch to avoid disturbing the muddy layer beneath. He then shovels the wet, heavy salt into a woven sack and carries it, hunched over with the weight, up the steep and slippery paths to a drying platform. His hands are raw and cracked from the constant exposure to the hypersaline water. His skin is weathered and burned by the sun, which is intensified by the reflection from thousands of white surfaces. During the dry season, this work is performed daily, from sunup to sundown, in a race to harvest the salt before the rainy season arrives and washes it all away. And this work is not a choice. Ownership of the salt pans of Maras is hereditary. It is controlled by the local community, and each family has the right to work a certain number of pools, a right that has been passed down for countless generations. But it is not just a right, it is a duty. To neglect your family's pools is to bring shame upon your household and to waste a precious resource that belongs to the community. For the young people of Maras, their future is often written in salt. They are born into this life of back-breaking labour. There is no escape. The stunningly beautiful landscape is, for them, a workplace from which they cannot resign. The logic behind this system is one of communal survival and sustainable resource management. By keeping ownership of the pools within the community and making their maintenance a hereditary duty, the people of Maras have ensured that this unique resource has been productive for over 500 years. It prevents outsiders from seizing control and guarantees a livelihood for the local families. The system fosters a deep sense of shared identity and responsibility. Everyone works, everyone benefits, and the resource is preserved for the next generation. It's a perfect microcosm of Andean social structure. But that doesn't change the physical reality. The breathtaking view that a visitor sees is built on the aching backs, cracked hands, and inescapable filial duty of the local people. The beautiful, shimmering pools are not a work of art, they are a factory floor, open to the sky. The piece is an illusion created by distance, up close. It is a world of sweat, strain, and the sharp, biting sting of salt in every crack in your skin. The community's wealth is directly proportional to the physical hardship they are willing to endure year after year, generation after generation. This idea of a life of duty, lived within a beautiful but confining structure, was not limited to the salt harvesters. It found its ultimate expression in a group of women who lived in a gilded cage, their every action dictated by the needs of the state. Your journey takes you back to an elite corner of the Inca world. You enter a serene and beautiful cloister, an Eclahuasi or House of the Chosen Women. The building is immaculate, its stonework perfect. Sunlight streams into a central courtyard filled with fragrant flowers and the quiet bubbling of a fountain. The air is filled with a soft, rhythmic humming and the gentle click-clack of looms. Here, a select group of young women, the Ecla, are at work. They are dressed in fine, clean robes of white wool, their hair neatly braided. They are weaving exquisite textiles, their fingers moving with a speed and precision that is mesmerizing. The illusion is one of monastic peace and sacred artistry. These women, chosen from across the empire for their beauty, skill, or noble birth, seem to live a life of privileged contemplation. They are creating the most valuable objects in the empire, besides the spondylus shell. Their textiles, known as kumbi, were finer than silk and were reserved for the Sepa Inca, the highest nobility, and for religious sacrifices. They also brew the sacred chica for state ceremonies and serve as priestesses in the cult of the sun. They are called the Virgins of the Sun, and their life appears to be one of devout, protected, and honored service. It is a gilded cage, to be sure, but a beautiful one, where they are safe from the hardships of the outside world and can dedicate their lives to creating beauty. But this serene, monastic illusion masks a much harsher reality. These women were not simply artists or priestesses, they were the single most important political and social commodity the Inca state possessed. Their lives were not their own. They were pawns in a vast, imperial game of power and diplomacy. When a young girl, sometimes as young as 8 or 10, was chosen to be an Ecla, she was removed from her family forever. She ceased to be a daughter or a sister and became the property of the state. The shocking reality is that the Eclahuasi was not a convent, it was a human warehouse. While some of the most sacred women did indeed remain virgins for life, serving the state religion, many others were destined for a different fate. They were a key part of the Inca system of political control. When the Sepa Inca wanted to reward a loyal general or solidify an alliance with a newly conquered local lord, he would not give him gold or land. He would give him a wife. And that wife would be an Ecla, chosen from this very house. Imagine the scene. A regional chieftain who has just submitted to Inca rule is brought to Cuzco, As a sign of the new bond, the Sepa Inca bestows upon him an eclat. This woman, who may have spent a decade in the cloister learning to be the perfect Inca woman, is suddenly married off to a stranger from a different culture, whose language she may not even speak. She is sent hundreds of miles from the only home she knows to live in a foreign land. Her job is not just to be a wife, but to be an agent of the state. She is expected to introduce Inca customs, religion, and textile techniques to her new home. The children will be raised as loyal subjects of the empire. She is a tool of cultural colonization, a living, breathing instrument of Inca soft power, and she has absolutely no say in the matter. The penalty for an eclat breaking her vow of chastity before being given away by the state was to be buried alive. The why behind this system was, like so much in the Inca world, a matter of shrewd statecraft. The Inca Empire expanded rapidly, and it needed ways to bind conquered leaders to the state. Military force could only go so far. By creating kinship ties, the Inca wove a web of obligation and loyalty across the Andes. The local lord who received an eclat as a wife was now family. He was the Sepa Inca's brother-in-law. To rebel against the state would be to rebel against his own kin, a grave transgression in Andean society. The beautiful textiles these women wove were not just art, they were a symbol of this political power. When a lord wore an Inca tunic, given to him by the emperor, he was wearing a visible sign of his privileged, subordinate status. The system was genius, and it was ruthless. The life of serene, sacred artistry was a temporary phase, a fattening up period before these women were deployed as political assets. The gilded cage was, in reality, a beautifully decorated prison where the inmates were the empire's most valuable and versatile diplomatic tools. This theme of creating beautiful, essential things that were nonetheless temporary and demanded constant, repetitive labor was echoed in the vessels that plied the waters of the Andes from the coasts to the highest navigable lake in the world. You are now on the shores of Lake Titicaca, a vast, sapphire blue sea set impossibly high in the Andes, nearly 2.5 miles above sea level. The sun is brilliant in the thin air, and the water is so clear you can see the waving weeds on the lake bed far below. Drawn up on the shore are the iconic vessels of this high-altitude world, graceful, canoe-shaped boats made entirely of dried totora reeds. Their high, curved prows, often decorated with stylized puma heads, give them a noble, almost regal appearance. Fishermen glide across the water in them, their silhouettes dark against the blinding shimmer of the lake. The glamorous illusion is one of timeless, sustainable craftsmanship. These reed boats, or balsas, seem to be a perfect marriage of nature and human ingenuity. They are beautiful, organic, and perfectly adapted to their environment. They look like they could have been built by the first people to ever settle on this lake, a tradition passed down unchanged through millennia. You see a master boat builder at work, his hands moving with the practiced ease of a lifetime of experience, bundling the reeds, tying them tightly with grass rope. The boat he is making is a work of art, a symbol of the enduring, harmonious relationship between the Eurus people and their sacred lake. It looks sturdy, durable, and eternal. But the shocking reality is that these beautiful, iconic boats are almost disposable. The totora reed, while buoyant and plentiful, is not a durable shipbuilding material. Once launched, it immediately begins to absorb water. From its very first voyage, the boat is slowly, imperceptibly sinking. Within a few weeks, it is noticeably waterlogged, heavy, and sluggish. Within 6 months to a year, it is a sodden, decomposing wreck, completely unsafe and unusable. It must be abandoned, left to rot back into the lake from which it came. The iconic reed boat is not a permanent vessel, it is a temporary tool. The beautiful, sleek craft you see today will be a pile of mulch within a year. This means that the work of the boat builder is never, ever done. It is a constant, repetitive cycle of construction. A fisherman doesn't just own a boat, he is in a perpetual state of building his next boat. The image of the wise old master craftsman passing down his secrets is true, but the context is not one of creating enduring masterpieces. It is one of teaching a skill that will be needed constantly, forever, just to maintain the status quo. The serene glide of the fisherman across the lake is made possible only by this endless, cyclical, and frankly, Sisyphean labor taking place back on the shore. The logic behind this seemingly inefficient system is, once again, a perfect adaptation to the environment. The totora reed is the single most important resource provided by the lake. It is not only used for boats, but also for building the floating islands on which some Euros communities live, for constructing their houses, and even as a food source. It is plentiful, fast-growing, and readily available. Building a boat from reeds requires no complex tools, no metal, and no wood, which is scarce at this altitude. It is a completely self-sufficient technology. The boat's short lifespan is not a design flaw. It's an accepted feature of the material. The constant need to rebuild is simply the price of using this abundant, local resource. The cycle of building, using and abandoning the boats mirrors the natural cycle of the reeds themselves, which grow, die and decay back into the lake. This system fosters a deep, intimate knowledge of the material and a culture of constant, forward-looking work. You can't get attached to your boat, because its demise is inevitable. You must always be gathering reeds for the next one. The beautiful, iconic reed boat is not a monument. It is a moment, a brief and graceful interlude in an unending cycle of creation and decay, fueled by the repetitive labor of its builder. This constant negotiation with a powerful and often dangerous natural environment is the final, overarching theme of Andean life. The reverence for the natural world was not an abstract philosophy. It was born from a very real and constant threat. You are standing now at a distance, looking up at the great spine of the Andes. The view is arguably one of the most sublime on the planet. The peaks are jagged and majestic, their snowy tops catching the first light of dawn in a blaze of pink and gold. They seem eternal, benevolent and protective, a silent council of giants watching over the valleys below. This is the ultimate glamorous illusion of the Andean world, the worship of the mountains as powerful, protective deities, the Apus. You can see small shrines on distant passes, places where travelers leave offerings of coca leaves or pour out a libation of chicha. It's a spiritual system born of immense beauty and a deep, poetic connection to the landscape. The people revere the mountains, and in return, the mountains shelter them and provide the water, via glacial melt, that sustains their lives. But this reverence was not born solely of beauty. It was forged in terror. The shocking reality is that these beautiful, majestic mountains are killers. The Andean range is one of the most geologically active regions in the world. It is a place of constant, violent, and unpredictable change. That snow-capped peak that looks so serene is a dormant, or perhaps not so dormant, volcano. An eruption could spew ash that would choke the fields and poison the water for hundreds of miles. It could melt the glacier at its summit, triggering a Lahara terrifying, fast-moving flood of mud, rock, and debris that could obliterate an entire village in the valley below in a matter of minutes, burying it under tons of earth. The ground beneath your feet is not stable. This is earthquake country. A sudden, violent tremor could level a city, shatter irrigation canals, and trigger catastrophic landslides. Imagine living with the constant, low-grade anxiety that the very earth you stand on could liquefy and swallow you. Imagine farming in a valley and knowing that the beautiful, steep slopes above you, the ones that protect you from the wind, could collapse in a torrent of rock and soil, wiping out your home and your family without warning. The protective embrace of the mountains is also a constant, deadly threat. The why behind the worship of the Apus becomes crystal clear in this context. It was not abstract nature worship. It was a deeply pragmatic, and often desperate, negotiation with an overwhelmingly powerful and capricious neighbor. You don't just admire a being that can kill you in an instant, you appease it. You make offerings to it. You treat it with the utmost respect and fear. The Apus were not gentle, benevolent guardians. They were seen as living entities with moods and appetites. They could be generous, providing water and stable ground, but they could also be wrathful, demanding payment and respect. Every ritual you have witnessed on this journey is in some way connected to this fundamental reality. The Kepakuka sacrifice, where perfect children were left on the highest peaks, that was a direct payment to the Apu, a desperate attempt to quell its anger after an earthquake or before a dangerous military campaign. The shaman's journey. He was often communing with the spirit of a specific mountain to ask for its help or diagnose its anger. The spondylus shell, the food of the gods, it was often offered at mountain shrines, a piece of the ocean brought to the Lord of the Peaks to ensure a balanced relationship between the two great sources of life and destruction. The entire Andean cosmology, with its emphasis on reciprocity, or Aini, was a worldview perfectly calibrated for survival in this environment. You could not conquer the mountains. You could not ignore them. You could only enter into a relationship with them, a constant give and take. You offered your respect, your labor, your prayers, and sometimes your most precious treasures, even your children, and in return, you pleaded for the mountain to remain calm. The deep spirituality was a survival mechanism, a psychological framework for living in a place of profound beauty and equally profound, ever-present danger. The silent, majestic peaks were not just gods, they were the source of all life and the potential agents of total annihilation. And now, as our journey through these forgotten festivals comes to a close, let the echoes of these rituals fade into the quiet of the night. The chants of the priests, the rhythmic stomp of bare feet on frozen earth, the silent language of the knotted cords, all of it recedes. The immense pressures and the stark realities of the ancient Andes can rest now, buried under the dust of centuries. The great mountains still stand, silent and watchful, their slopes holding the memory of every sacrifice, every prayer, every desperate hope. The thin, clear air of the high altitudes carries no sound now but the whisper of the wind, a long, slow exhalation after ages of turmoil. As you drift away from this world of brilliant sun and deep shadow, let the overwhelming sense of balance and harsh logic of Aini, of a world where every beautiful thing had a shocking and difficult price, soften into a gentle hum. Let the darkness behind your eyes be as peaceful as the unlit depths of a Naka aqueduct, as calm as a spondylus shell resting on the ocean floor, as still as a quipper hanging in a silent room. There are no more debts to be paid tonight. The cosmic balance sheet is clear. The world is quiet. And you can simply rest. End of script. Sweet dreams.